It's so cool. Hello, Confidant community. Welcome to the live. Now, if you've checked out our live before, you know it's all about making financial conversations accessible. And of course, today will be no different. So right now, we're listening to the sounds of Inner City. And the song that we're featuring today is Good Life. And here's to hoping people entering into retirement, especially the ladies, can do just that, live the good life, right?
Exactly right.
So I want to know, Confidant community, have you heard this little gem before? Because I kind of dug up in the crates today. I kind of went right digging in the crates today, didn't I, Anna? I'm telling you.
Oh, for sure. It brings back good times, good memories.
Totally. I remember, as I said to you, just getting out of my seat and, going on the dance floor on account of this song coming on. So there you go. So I'd love to know, do my Gen Xers remember this one? Because I feel like this was like our song, our time, right?
Anyway, us, but they're classics. They're all classics in my mind.
I 100% agree with you. And if you do remember it, please feel free to post in the chat. I would love to know. And basically, this particular special request today was from our esteemed guest, Anna Nunes, who is, I just wanted to say to you, Anna, you're such a trailblazer. I'm so excited having you on the live today. Folks, you need to know there are very few female actuaries out in the pension game, just so you know. So we really need to give you the recognition you deserve, girl. You just know that we're shouting you out today because on top of that, on top of being an actuary, which is like unicorn level, right? You're also a savings, investment, retirement, and pension expert. So we're just so excited to have you on the live. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
I'm super happy to be here. Thank you so much for the invitation, Jackie.
No problem, no problem. So let's begin. But before we start, I'd love to know, Confidant community, how many of you out there belong to a pension plan? If you do, please post in the chat. We'd love to know, do you belong to a pension plan? And also, do you know which type of pension plan do you belong to? Is it a defined benefit plan? Is it a defined contribution plan? Do you know what you're going to get? Honestly, we'd love to hear your questions. So feel free to post in the chat. And so, Anna, let's talk about this. You've worked in pensions for a long time. I said that you were a numbers geek, which I find really exciting as well. So tell me, what motivated you to get into this game and why do you love it so much? Why do you love numbers so much?
Yeah, more than 30 years in the same industry. You're not going to see that going forward too many times, I don't think.
No,
but
I don't think so.
When I was a young person, I was still in high school. I just did well in math. I had this analytical mind. I loved the numbers. I got really high marks in math. And I would still remember vividly my grade 13 math teacher. Remember when we had grade 13 in Ontario?
You're so dating me, Anna, honestly.
So my grade 13 math teacher introduced me to this career path, this opportunity to become an actuary. I had no clue what that was. But I did a little digging, figured out what actuaries do, and they basically use math to help people either savings for figuring out how much they should be saving for retirement to help their future selves, or actuaries can also work in the insurance industry. They set premiums for life insurance, for disability insurance, for car and house insurance. So this whole variety of things that you can do with this math skill that goes beyond being a math teacher, right? Which was the avenue that a lot of people that did well in math were pursuing. So that pulled me into the career. And then once I started working, particularly in pensions, I could really feel the impact that I was having on making sure people had money for when they stopped working. And then later on into my career, I got really, really interested in thinking about how women are impacted by pensions and helping to close the gender pension gap. So that's what I've been focused on in the last little while.
Yeah, and we're really excited that you have all these numbers, because I don't think many people out there are familiar with this whole idea of gender pension gap. We might be familiar with the gender pay gap. Um, Lots of Confidant community members have seen me post all kinds of articles on gender pay and why it matters. But just give me an idea. What don't we understand about the gender pension gap? Because I think that's a whole new term people need to get really familiar with.
Yeah, absolutely. And it has been a term that has only appeared in the last few years because we've started to open our eyes and pay attention to this idea. So this summer, the Ontario Pay Equity Office published a report based on research
Right.
focusing on this topic. So what they did is they took a look across the Canadian landscape and they evaluated and compared retirement income that men receive against retirement income that women receive. And they found that currently there's a 17% gap. So that means that for every dollar of pension and retirement income that a man is receiving, only 83 cents is going to a woman. And so, just like the gender pay gap, there's this persistent difference between what men receive and what women receive. And that gap has been the same since 1976. It hasn't budged, it hasn't moved, even though there's more women in the workforce, etc. And there's all kinds of reasons that we have a pension gap. The underlying pay gap is absolutely one of the things that leads to having a pension gap, because
right. So we're already starting off making less.
Exactly. Women tend to work in industries that don't have workplace pension plans, more sort of precarious work, part-time work, those kinds of industries where you don't have access to an employer-based pension plan. Women, of course, we know, tend to take some time off in their careers to look after children or aging parents. So they've got gaps in employment that also where they lose pension coverage. So that leads to lower retirement income. And then oftentimes when there's a choice to be made in a workplace pension plan, women are either too conservative or they don't feel confident enough to make the right decision. So they end up either not deciding and having a default choice put onto them, or they're not optimizing and taking the opportunities that they have to keep their retirement income growing appropriately. So all these factors.
I wonder, as you say that, is it that they don't have the time, or they just have too much going on, right? Like they're not making enough. I often find they're in debt, so because they started, so it might be overwhelming to just turn their mind almost to, okay, what do I need to do about my pension?
Exactly. Yeah.
Like,
Affordability
is
number
at
one.
work, and what do I do with them, right?
Exactly. It's always a trade-off between the money I have and that I can spend today, and making myself secure in the future. So generally speaking, it's kind of like exercise. You would rather sit and binge watch something on Netflix versus going out to go for a jog, because going out for a jog is going to benefit your future self. And retirement savings is the same thing. Sometimes we focus on today more so, and we sacrifice decisions that we could make today that would help us in the future. So it's a human nature thing primarily. But that's why it's important to get out there and talk about pensions and make people aware.
Well, you say that, and I just think, here is a woman who is making less than they, are being offered a pension plan. But as you said, there's that much more money coming out of the pension plan. So they have even less money to work with. So they really need to be savvy as to how they're going to make the most of the money that they have left over, given that, they're starting off in a deficit, as you will. So it's a really tough challenge, but one that we definitely, as you said, have to pay attention to.
For sure, for sure. And it is sometimes about those trade-offs. But what I will say is that the earlier you start, the
Yeah.
better off you'll be. And also, a dollar that you save for your future today is going to be working for you, whether you invest it or you're just saving it. It's going to grow, and you're going to get so much more value out of that dollar that you put away than, maybe that extra coffee or that extra new pair of new shoes, um, I'm forgetting the word, but in any event, so you have to make those decisions.
Yeah, it's really prioritizing what's important, as you say, your future self, especially because, as you'd mentioned before, we take time off, but we also live longer, right?
Absolutely. Exactly. And that's where women have to account for that. Again, depending on the type of savings vehicle that you're using for your retirement, you live longer. You may have more medical expenses because you do make it to those older ages. So
Right.
you have to think about what your needs and wants are going to be way off into the future. And that's hard to visualize,
Right.
right? Whether, especially if you're in your starting your career 20s 30s, but even if you're 40 50 60, trying to imagine what you're going to spend when you're 80 or 90 is kind of very difficult to turn your mind to.
It's hard, but that's when we talk to our clients about building a plan and getting more familiar with like what the future will look like by getting your numbers down and then looking at ways to project them so you understand a little bit more deeply what your future can look like. Because
Exactly.
the sad part of what I'm hearing about all of this is your future self can come much faster than you think. Right?
That is absolutely true. But there's one kind of a little mental trick that you can use, and that is women are so good at prioritizing other people, right?
That's it.
Children, spouse, partner, employer, even. Just think of your future self as another person, like not necessarily as you, and add them to your list of people that you have to worry about and take care of,
Love that.
right? Yeah.
Love that. Okay, well, let's look at ways. What can women do if that's the case, to close the gender gap? So the gender pension gap, which is something we really got to get our mind around, right? We have this person, that's us, that we need to think about. We need to think about our futures. We know that in so many ways the deck can feel stacked against us, but what can we do to close these gaps?
Yeah, for sure. So it really depends on what stage of life you're in. But I've got two daughters who are now adults, but they've just recently started out in their work life and their careers. So my advice to them was immediately find out if your workplace offers a pension retirement savings arrangement. And if they do, get yourself signed up right away, even if it's optional, even if you have that decision to make. If they let you wait for a couple of years before you join, don't wait, sign up.
Okay.
Yes, for sure, you might have some extra deductions off of your pay right away when you start, but you'll feel it less if you do it right now than if you do it later on, like 2 years from now. If you delay joining the plan, then in 2 years' time, it'll feel like you're having a cutback in your take home pay.
So,
Versus if you do it right now, you'll adjust and you'll figure out your budget based on your take home pay right now, and you'll sort it out.
and it's funny you say that because sometimes people don't realize if they don't put that money, because it's before tax, right? So if you're
Yes.
putting money into your pension plan, that money is not going to be taxed. So you likely will end up with similar to what you would end up with after tax, right? So you put it away. It's not money you would have gotten anyway because that's before tax. And then after you put it in, it's works out often similar to what you get after tax if you had gotten the money and you didn't put it in. So you really want to weigh those things out. What would be my before tax cost
Yeah.
of putting it in? What would be
Yeah.
my after tax cost of putting it in? You might be surprised that it's a smaller amount of money than you think.
That's it. Exactly right. So that tax impact can be really powerful, especially in those first few years that you're
Yeah.
working. Now, depending on the kind of arrangement that you have at your workplace that you've just joined, because
Right.
you're following our advice, you may have the ability to choose what kind of investments your money goes into.
Right.
This is another spot where women sometimes don't make an optimal choice because they don't feel confident. They don't understand how the stock market works. So they don't want to invest any of their money in equities. They don't want to lose any money. So they're giving up this upside opportunity to make their money really grow and work for them by being too conservative or not making a choice. So
Yeah,
my
I often
advice,
see money when we do financial plans for people. I often see money parked in like a high interest savings account.
right?
Let's use high interest loosely, but it's in
Yes,
a savings account and it might have
it's
been
right,
sitting there for a long time
right.
because that woman didn't know what to do and couldn't make a decision. So they parked it. But parking is different than staying, right? Parking it is 3 months. It's
Yes.
staying there if it's there for years and it's not, as you said, working for you and it's not compounding and growing, right?
Yeah. And that's another flaw that people have in their thinking. When they get a new job, they start working for an employer. These days, they think, oh, I'm only going to be here for a few years, then I'm going to move, and do something else. Lo and behold, 10 years goes by, you're still at the same place. And those decisions you made in the first couple of months or couple of years of working there, you've now shot yourself in the foot if you made the wrong decision or if you were too conservative. So assume you're going to stay. You get the benefit of that employer dollar that's coming your way. Invest in equities, especially if the younger you are, and make those decisions explicit, and then just be paying attention to your retirement account.
So pay attention to your pension, ladies,
Pay
is what I'm
attention to
hearing from Anna. So don't sleep on those, when you set up. I know it's really overwhelming sometimes when you're just starting a new job to just kind of go, let me deal with this later. Later might come later than you think. So
yeah,
what I'm hearing from you is definitely make those decisions, make them thoughtful as soon as you sign on so you get your money to work for you. You're working at this company. Why don't you let the money that is in this pension plan also work for you too, and hopefully work for you in retirement?
exactly. And oftentimes your company will have sessions and webinars where you can sign up voluntarily and learn about your pension. Take those opportunities and don't feel silly about asking questions, because pensions are complicated sort of in theory because the industry has made them a little complicated. But get in
Exactly.
there and try and understand, because at their essence, they are savings for the future. And, don't worry about the terminology and the letters and the acronyms. Ask your questions and make sure you understand. Because
Yeah, confident community. That's one of the things we talk about all the time. No question is a dumb question. It's your money, so you need to know what's going on with it.
Exactly. Here's another little tidbit that sometimes people leave money on the table as well. So if they are participating in a pension plan where the employer promises to make a match,
Right,
but they'll only match your dollars if you increase your contributions. So for
right,
example, they say, we'll, if you contribute up to 5% of your pay, we'll match 50%. But if you, increase your contributions to 8%, we'll take ours to 100% match. Right?
well,
Yeah, numbers, mathematics, but
money,
the crux
money.
of the story is give me the most that I can possibly get from my employer in this benefit. And yes, it comes at the price of me having to take some of my, pre-tax dollars and
That's
sending
right.
it to the pension plan as well. But
That's
I'm
right.
still going to get it. I'm just going to get it later. Right.
Right, right.
So that's another thing where people often will leave money on the table, and it drives me crazy.
Oh, I'm so glad you mentioned it. So my employer says I'll match all the way up to 9%. And then I'm like, oh, I'll only do 4 because, it's nice to have the extra money for that latte or lunch on Fridays with the gang, whatever the case
True.
may be.
Yeah.
I'm certainly
Yep.
not minimizing this by any means, but 9% is 9%. Show me the money, confidant community. That's money that could be working for you. Um, you know,
Exactly.
that could be working for you that you didn't have to come up with. This is other people's money, right? That
Yep.
they've given you. 9% is 9%, especially if it's not money you had to come up with. Sure,
Got
it
it.
comes at the sacrifice of you having to come up with 9%. But
Yep.
altogether, that's 18% working for you, half of
Got it.
which you didn't have to come up with yourself. So
Right.
don't leave money on the table is what I'm hearing, Anna.
That's it. Yep, for sure. Make those pension decisions, right? Ask when you need to make decisions and get the most bang for your buck while you're working at that organization.
Love it. Love it. So now for the people who've done all that and then they decide, you know what, somebody else, maybe I got headhunted because I'm just super sharp employee. I've decided I want to move on and I have a pension now that I, maxed out whatever the employer would give me because I love other people's money. The confidant community know I love OPM, other people's money. Give me that free money from the pension plan. Thank you. So now what do I do with the pension I built up there? What do you suggest?
Right. So that's a critical moment in time where you've got some decisions to make about your pension. So if you're under, you're still young in your career and you're under age 55 or so, depending on the kind of plan that you're in, you'll be offered a choice between a lump sum, which can be a significant amount of money because it represents all of the savings that you and your employer have been accumulating while you've been working there. Or if you're in a defined benefit pension, you can leave the money in the pension plan and then receive it later on. Generally speaking, the advice that I give to people is if you're younger and if you're in a defined contribution arrangement, so it's a savings account, kind of a pension plan, generally speaking, it's best to take the money out and keep it consolidated.
Right.
In your new company, you should find out if their retirement savings program will accept the money so you can bring it in from your employer to the next one. That would be ideal.
Right.
If they don't accept that, then put it into your own RRSP and keep track of it.
Right.
If you're a little bit older, in your mid 40s, and you were in a good defined benefit plan like teachers or an OMERS or a hospital's healthcare pension plan, leave that pension there. CAT as well. And you've got more than sort of 10 years of service or 15 years of service. You now have a really nice nest egg in that pension plan that you can start drawing on as early as age 55.
Right.
It's guaranteed in the amount that gets paid to you. It'll often be increased with cost of living once you start getting those payments, and you don't have to worry about investing the money. Somebody else is doing that for you.
It doesn't get better than that. Like your investments are on autopilot when you have a defined benefit plan, right?
Yeah. And global investments all over the world in types of markets and in investment asset classes that you could never access by yourself.
Right.
But do not lose track of this money. So if you are in your 40s or so and you've said, okay, I'm going to leave my pension back there, and now 2, 3, 4, 5 jobs later, you've forgotten that you have this benefit entitlement. Get back your paperwork, keep in touch with your pension plan. Make sure that if you move, you notify them of your new address and give them your email address as well, so that you don't lose that money, that entitlement. I can't tell you the number of people that I've come across that, tell me, oh yeah, I think years ago I had a pension, but I don't know what happened to it. They lose track.
No,
don't do that.
100%. And I think, you can't stress enough, confidant community, you're leaving your job. And I see this a lot with executives. They're moving around a lot. So we're talking about high earning women and pension plans. They move around a lot. So they might have, a defined contribution plan here, over there. Absolutely look at consolidating them when you leave another job, either into your own personal RSP, so it's even easier to keep track of. And if your employer has a plan, it's just a question of what they offer. So it's definitely worth a conversation with your financial professional to see what makes the most sense for you. But don't leave that employer without giving them your contact information if you're leaving your pension plan there. The other thing, as you're mentioning that I want to caution people, because I see this a lot, a really rich defined benefit plan, inflation protected, giving you like a nice baseline of income and retirement. I see sometimes advisors recommending that their employee that they're talking to, their client, can cash those kinds of plans in. Before you do something like that, confidant community, get a second opinion. Don't just go ahead and cash it in based on one person's advice. There's a lot to consider when you're giving up a guaranteed income that's inflation protected. Do you hear me? So please.
Only
Before
a
making,
small percentage of the population of Canada has access to one of those plans. It's less than 25% of
yes,
Canadians. So they are very valuable. They can form the foundation of your
exactly.
retirement, base, and they are entirely reliable. So yeah, absolutely. Hang on to
It's your
them.
golden ticket.
You got
So,
it. You
so
got
one
it.
of the things I get asked a lot. So I'm a high earning woman. I'm leaving a job. Some of it, like the thing is, sometimes it's like 1 year, like they're getting this money. They don't. So what are some of the tax implications? So if I'm getting a severance along with a pension, it can get a little tricky. And anything that they should think about there.
Yeah, so again, in this pension option consideration, there are maximum transfer amounts
That's right.
that are in the Income Tax Act. So if you have a sizable commuted value, which is the lump sum that you're entitled to out of a defined benefit plan, there's a calculation that gets done that says only a certain amount of that total lump sum can be transferred tax-free or tax sheltered.
That's
The
right.
extra, which can be significant, it can be
Right.
$200,000, $300,000, is subject to tax because it's treated as income in that year that you receive it.
That's
So
right.
if you're choosing, be very aware that you will have to pay tax, and tax will be withheld on that little top-up piece, and you're actually wearing away the possibility of replicating that guaranteed index defined
Again,
benefit pension because the tax man is taking a portion of it away
that's
from
right.
you.
That's right. That's money that could have been also working for you that you've lost, which is why get a second opinion, run the numbers to see if this is going to make sense because
Yeah,
it's very challenging to beat a pension plan that has inflation protection. And the reality is, would you even want to try?
yeah.
Like it's
And
an
another
easy win, right?
Exactly. And these big lump sum payments from a tax perspective can actually take you to the highest tax bracket too. So, it's your marginal tax rate can be at the highest level where maybe you weren't, marginally being taxed that way as well. So all kinds of considerations around that. So think carefully.
Absolutely. It could be a big surprise for people when they
Yes.
commute their pension, they take the money and find out they owe the tax man or
Yes.
woman a lot
Or
of money.
the
So
CRA.
exactly, the CRA. Nobody's friend, the CRA, that all of a
Mhm,
sudden there's all this money
mhm.
to be paid. So just keep all those things in mind. Now, what about at the new job? What do people need to think about as they
Right.
move
So
to a new organization? They've left that job. I'm a high earner. I've left my job. I figured all this out, which is great. Anna, what do I
yeah.
need to be thinking about pension wise as I go to my new gig?
Yeah. So now hopefully you're a little more pension educated because you learned everything that there was to learn about the pension plan that you had, but
Right.
you're kind of starting from square one again with your new employer as you are, negotiating your benefits and salary package. You should find out what kind of a pension plan they have. Can you join right away? Can you bring in money from your prior pension plan? Can you make extra contributions if you have a little extra pay?
Awesome.
But also, if you're a very high earner, talk to your new employer about the benefits that they provide from a pension standpoint above the income tax limits. So, retirement savings, just like you've got only 18% of earnings as RSP room, there's also limits on how much can be saved inside of a pension plan. And for very high earners, often a company will provide an additional pension on top of that tax sheltered room to help attract and retain and compensate their, senior leadership team. So ask about whether they have one, whether they would consider putting one in place. And the names of those vehicles, they're called either a supplemental executive retirement plan, a SERP,
Right.
or a retirement compensation arrangement, an RCA, which is a vehicle where money actually gets deposited for your future retirement income source. So
I,
ask about those
I
things.
love that. So, confidant community, high earning pension plan earners are looking for places to put your money to make sure there's going to be enough for retirement. The RSP contribution might not be enough. And really, what Anna's talking about is: are you aware that if you're an executive or high income earner, an RSP might not be enough? What does your employer have available to you? Is there a SERP supplemental, what did you call that?
Executive retirement plan.
Supplemental executive retirement plan,
Yeah.
or retirement compensation arrangement, RCA. Does your employer offer these benefits to ensure that you're going to be as comfortable when you're working as you'll be in retirement when you're not, right? So see what's available to you. These things are things that if you don't know, if you don't ask, you don't get, right? So always good, especially in this very competitive market that we're in for people with high skills. What's your employer doing over and above the basics to make sure you're covered?
Exactly. And the earnings threshold where these things start to become relevant is around $200,000, right? So lots of senior executives make more than that. And they would include, base and any kind of incentive compensation as well. So sometimes your basic plan doesn't include bonuses. So make sure you ask whether your bonuses, because they can be a big chunk of your take-home pay, whether they're included in the pension. It's important that they are.
And otherwise it could be a tax nightmare. I've seen that movie as well.
Exactly right. Yep. So those are also considerations when you're changing jobs.
I love that. So the bonus could be taxable versus if it's in a SERP or in an RCA, retirement compensation arrangement. So having these vehicles might mean not only you save tax, but you can put that money that would have gone toward taxes towards your retirement. So worthwhile conversation to have with your employer and with your planner as well. Yes, all right, sure. Let's talk about women, in this scenario who are entrepreneurs who might not necessarily have access to a pension. I deal a lot with executives and lawyers who have their own firm, and they're always having conversations about their concern. Will they have enough for retirement? What do they do? What should they do?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great consideration. A lot of times people will look at their business as the place where they're building up equity for the future, right? And absolutely, that can be the case if you are later on successful in finding a buyer for your business and the business can carry on, then you can unlock some of that equity. But depending on the kind of job and business that you have, that might not be feasible. So, you basically have the withdrawals that you make from your business to either a salary or however you're compensating yourself. You need to use that money to save for your own future, for your retirement.
That's right.
So, of course, you can use your RRSP room, which, if you are a higher earner, again, you will not even be able to save 18% because the $31,500 limit is the most that you can put in.
That's
so you might come up against that cap first before your 18%. There's a vehicle that was very popular a number of years ago called an individual pension plan, an IPP. Right. And it's essentially a defined benefit, can be generous pension plan that you put in place in your company to cover you.
Right.
Sometimes it can also cover one or two other employees, but it's a mini DB plan. The challenge with that is that it comes along with the administration and the compliance requirements that a huge defined benefit pension plan also has to do. You've got to hire an actuary that will tell you what contributions you need to make. The contributions that you're required to put into that plan can be volatile, depending how that money's been invested.
Right.
And the Canada Revenue Agency in the last 5 or 10 years has put a lot of scrutiny on these plans and has actually deregistered a number of them because they weren't in compliance. So you really have to evaluate and weigh the benefits versus the costs of putting one of these in place.
So in other words, it sounds like choose your actuarial partners and pension administrators very carefully. It is something, personal pension plan might be something that makes sense for you, something to explore, but, really check out who you're working with to make sure that they can actually execute on that.
Yeah, exactly. And that the net benefit for you as coming out of the arrangement in the terms of a pension is going to be worth the extra costs that you're spending for that administration and compliance.
Exactly. And I was going to say, for lawyers who are listening, who are independent and own your own business, it's important that Lawyers Financial does offer access to the CAT pension plan. So if you're looking to have a defined benefit for your corporation, like get in touch, because Lawyers Financial does offer a equivalent to a defined benefit plan for lawyers who are notoriously behind on saving for retirement. Just so you know, I see you. I see all of you.
They must love you to death. And I'll jump on top of that and say that for doctors now who, are medical certified to operate in Canada, there's a new pension plan that's also come into being called the Medicus pension plan.
Ooh.
That is also defined benefit, guaranteed benefits coming out of it, but the contributions are fixed, and every participant going in is making the same contributions as a percentage of pay, just as if you were participating in a DB pension plan. And they do all the administration, they do all of the investing, so all that work is done for you. And it's brand new. It just launched in late 2023, I think. So they are definitely looking to market and to get new members. And they're backed by Scotiabank. So it's not a fly-by-night kind of an arrangement. It's something that they've really worked at putting in place, and that they expect to really work for the doctors out there that don't have another vehicle for saving for retirement.
Exactly. And also notoriously unfunded for their retirement. So, to wrap this up, I'd love to know, what are some things that people need to know about pensions that we yet haven't spoken about, that, really, again, Confidant community, pay attention to your pension. What are some tips that you want to leave the Confidant community with?
I'll say two more things.
Sure,
one
absolutely.
more that particularly applies to women is when you do take those leaves from work to look after children or, elders in your family, etc., ask your plan or your pension plan or your employer if you can buy that period of time that you're not working to keep your pension whole. Because if you're not contributing and you're not working, you're going to have a gap there. That period of time is not going to be included in your pension ultimately, and that will result in you losing out on that period. Right. So yes, you may have to pay your regular contributions during that period of absence, but at the end of the day, you get that employer match and you get that ultimate DB pension. You may even be able to retire earlier as a result of keeping that period of time whole. So when you take a leave, talk to your plan, talk to your employer. It's really important.
Yeah, and talk to your advisor to see how you can fund that, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Sometimes employers will offer you a loan so
That's
that
right.
when you come back to work, you can take, up to a year and a half to pay those back.
That's right.
So, but don't lose the option to do it. The other thing that I'll say sort of for people who are now closer and approaching retirement is that it's never too late to figure out pensions. The average life expectancy for a 60-year-old is still 23 years.
Yes.
For women, it's even longer. And when I say average, that means at least half the population is going to live even longer than that. So just because you're close to when you'd like to retire doesn't mean all is lost. You can still learn, do some planning, figure things out, rearrange some of your financial goals to get yourself to the place where you can have a good life in your retirement.
Exactly. I think that's the thing. Often I find when I talk to women, they always feel like they're so behind, so they don't necessarily want to turn their mind to figuring these things out. And I really appreciate you mentioning that. It's never too late. Confidant community, it's just a question of understanding once you make the decision that you want to have as we said, a good life in retirement, that we just know what our options are.
Exactly right. Yeah.
So I think Anna, I really want to just give you your flowers right now. I really do.
I appreciate
I want to
it.
really thank you for this insightful conversation that we've had today. And I also wanted to just say, if you're an employer that's looking for ways to maximize your pension strategy, we'll be linking Anna's contact info to our live summary that we're going to send out this Sunday. We're going to send it to you as well, Anna. So check it out this Sunday. Perfect. And you'll be able to catch also the essential information you might have missed if you tuned into the live a little bit late. No worries. We've always got your back, Confidant community. So if you enjoyed this live, please like and share. We would appreciate that. Share it with somebody who needs to hear this, right? You might be behind, but it's not too late. Sharing is caring on this live. And you know what? We're going to be back next week for another session. So if you're a high earning woman, you will not want to miss this one. Please remember to check out our social media and YouTube channel for all the latest updates. And of course, see you next time, Confidant community. Please be good to yourself. You've got this. Take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.